Peace begins when resistance ends. Buddhist teaching. There is a moment in every human life when the noise becomes too loud, when the burden becomes too heavy, when the contradictions of the world stretch the mind beyond what it can comfortably hold. In that moment, you may feel as if life is pressing against you from every direction. The more you try to control, the more you try to push through the discomfort, the more life seems to tighten around you. Yet within the profound simplicity of Buddhist wisdom, there is an ancient truth gently waiting to be rediscovered. Peace does not arise from conquering the world, nor from controlling what happens outside of you. Peace begins the moment you release your resistance to what is. Peace begins when resistance ends. This teaching is not about giving up. It is not about apathy, denial, or passive acceptance of injustice. Instead, it is an invitation to recognize that the suffering you experience is not solely created by life's events, but by the inner struggle against them. The Buddha taught that the mind is the creator of heaven and hell, and it is the mind that transforms a moment of difficulty into lifelong suffering. When the mind resists, it turns pain into misery, discomfort into chaos, uncertainty into fear. When the mind softens, when it surrenders its obsessive need to control, when it stops clinging to expectations, something within you finally becomes free. This teaching challenges the modern mentality of constant struggle. Today, people are encouraged to fight for everything: success, recognition, power, validation, the approval of others, the illusion of a perfect future. But what if the true transformation you seek is found not in fighting harder, but in resisting less? What if genuine peace, the kind that endures storms and transcends circumstances, is waiting right behind the wall of your resistance? Consider that every moment of suffering you have ever experienced arose because reality did not match your expectations. The difference between what you wanted and what is created tension, frustration, fear, disappointment, or anger. Resistance is the refusal to accept reality as it is. Peace is the willingness to embrace reality as it unfolds. In this teaching, you will explore what resistance truly is, how it manifests in the body and mind, how it shapes your emotional world, and how it silently governs your decisions. You will understand why resistance deepens suffering, why acceptance dissolves anxiety, why letting go does not weaken you, but strengthens you. You will see how many of your struggles are self-created, born from the habit of clinging to identities, to desires, to beliefs, to expectations of how life should be. You will learn how to soften the inner grip, how to return to a state of openness, and how to align with the natural flow of existence. This text will guide you through 5 profound teachings, each one designed to illuminate a different dimension of inner resistance and inner freedom. Each topic expands deeply into the subtle dynamics of the mind, the emotional body, and the unconscious patterns that shape your life. The writing is continuous, meditative and contemplative, inviting you to slow down, to breathe, and to see yourself with clarity. These are not shallow reflections, but long, detailed journeys through the spiritual psychology of resistance. If you allow it, this teaching will not only change how you experience pain, uncertainty, and difficulty, but how you experience yourself. For at the heart of Buddhist wisdom lies the recognition that the world is not your enemy. Your thoughts are not your identity, and peace is closer than you think. The moment you stop resisting life, life stops resisting you. The moment you surrender the illusion of control, you rediscover your natural state. Peace was never missing. It was simply covered by grasping and fear. Now let us begin the journey inward. The root of inner resistance and why it creates suffering. To understand why peace begins when resistance ends, you must first understand what resistance actually is. Resistance is not simply disagreement with what is happening. It is not merely dislike or discomfort. Resistance is the deep inner contraction that arises when you refuse to accept reality as it unfolds. It is the mind's attempt to demand that life be different from what it is in this moment. Resistance is the gap between reality and your expectations, and it is this gap that becomes the birthplace of suffering. Whenever you feel tightness in the chest, anxiety rising in the mind, or frustration boiling within you, what you are experiencing is not the event itself, but your refusal to accept the event. The human mind is conditioned to believe that control equals safety. From a very young age, you are taught that the world responds to effort, force, discipline, planning, and willpower. These qualities are important, but when they become excessive, when they cross the boundary into attachment, they create an inner rigidity that distorts your ability to flow with life. You begin to believe that everything must be shaped according to your desires, and when it does not happen, a deep sense of resistance arises. This resistance is not simply emotional, it is physical, mental, and spiritual. The body tightens, the breath becomes shallow, the shoulders rise, the stomach contracts, and the nervous system enters a state of alertness. The mind becomes filled with stories. This should not be happening. I do not want this. Life is unfair. I must fix this. I must fight this. I cannot accept this. These stories create more resistance, and the resistance amplifies the physical tension, creating a feedback loop that magnifies suffering. In Buddhism, this is known as the second arrow. The first arrow is the event itself, the unavoidable pain, disappointment, loss, or challenge. The second arrow is the suffering you create through resistance. The Buddha taught that although the first arrow may be painful, the second arrow is optional. It is created by your own mind. The reason resistance creates suffering is that resistance is a form of attachment. Attachment is not love or care, it is dependency. It is the belief that your peace is dependent upon circumstances being exactly the way you want them to be. When you attach to a desired outcome, you place your happiness outside of yourself. You create a mental condition that says, I will only be well if this happens. The moment life does not comply with your demand, suffering arises. Resisting reality is like trying to push back the ocean. The waves come as they come, without asking for permission, without requiring your approval. The ocean does not adjust to your preferences. Instead, it invites you to soften, to flow, to move with the tides, rather than against them. Every time you resist life, you are resisting the nature of impermanence. Everything changes, everything arises and falls away. No experience stays forever. No emotion remains permanently, no circumstance is fixed. Yet the human mind wants to hold on, to make things predictable, stable, secure, and controllable. This desire for certainty creates resistance to the fundamental law of change. The more rigid your mind becomes, the more painful change feels. The more flexible your mind becomes, the more gracefully you can adapt. Inner resistance shows up in countless forms. The refusal to accept past mistakes, the inability to let go of old relationships, the fear of an uncertain future, the constant need to be right, the insistence that others behave according to your expectations, the desire to control outcomes that are far beyond your reach. Each form of resistance is a contraction of the heart. It is the moment you stop breathing deeply into the present moment and begin fighting against it. When you resist, you become trapped in the mind. The mind begins to create stories, judgments, fears, and projections. You begin to live not in reality, but in your interpretation of reality. Resistance transforms life into a battlefield. Every moment becomes a fight. Every situation becomes a problem. Every challenge becomes a threat. In this state, the smallest inconveniences feel heavy, and every uncertainty feels dangerous. Resistance blinds you to the simplicity of life. It blinds you to the fact that reality is neutral until you judge it. Reality simply is. It becomes stressful or peaceful depending on how your mind meets it. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from craving and aversion. Craving is the desire for something to be different, the pursuit of pleasure, the hunger for control, the clinging to identity. Aversion is the refusal to experience what is unfolding, the rejection of discomfort, the resistance to change. Both craving and aversion are forms of resistance because both refuse to accept the present moment as it is. When you crave something intensely, you resist the absence of that thing. When you feel aversion, you resist the presence of something you do not like. Therefore, craving and aversion both create tension. They both create dissatisfaction. They both create inner conflict. The absence of resistance is not passivity, it is clarity. It is the recognition that reality is not against you and you do not need to fight it. When the mind stops resisting, it can finally see the present moment clearly. Without resistance, your perception becomes grounded, balanced, and awake. You stop projecting fears into the future and regrets into the past. You stop expecting life to obey your designs. You begin to witness moments as they arise, without judgment, without fear, without clinging. Imagine a river flowing naturally around rocks. The rocks do not stop the water. They shape its path. The river does not resist. It adapts. It finds a way. It continues flowing. The path of the river is not weakness, but wisdom. The river understands its nature, to move, to flow, to find harmony with whatever it encounters. Humans, on the other hand, tend to resist. They judge the rocks, curse the obstacles, resent the bends in the path. Instead of flowing, they demand that the river straighten itself according to their expectations. This is the essence of suffering. Inner resistance is often unconscious. You may not even realize how many moments you push away, how many emotions you suppress, how many thoughts you fight. People resist pain by pretending it is not there. They resist fear by distracting themselves. They resist loneliness by seeking constant validation. They resist uncertainty by trying to control the future. They resist change by clinging to the familiar, even when the familiar is unhealthy. Every strategy of resistance creates more suffering because resistance does not solve the problem. It magnifies it. When you resist an emotion, you do not dissolve it. You trap it within your body. The emotion becomes stuck, replaying itself over and over, seeking expression. When you resist a thought, it does not disappear. It grows louder, seeking attention. When you resist a situation, you lose the ability to respond wisely because your mind becomes clouded by frustration. Resistance is a form of self-imposed imprisonment. When you resist, you restrict your own freedom. You block the natural flow of experience. You hold on to what needs to be released and push away what needs to be faced. Buddhist wisdom teaches that acceptance is the first step toward freedom. Acceptance is not resignation. It is not approval. It is acknowledgement. It is the ability to say, this is what is here right now. What do I choose to do with it? Acceptance opens a door that resistance keeps closed. Acceptance allows the mind to relax, the breath to deepen, the heart to open. When you accept, you can see clearly. You gain the ability to act rather than react. You gain the space to choose your response wisely. Resistance is rooted in fear, fear of loss, fear of change, fear of discomfort, fear of the unknown, fear of impermanence, fear of losing control. When you resist, you are trying to protect yourself, but this protection is an illusion. Fear does not protect, it constricts. Fear does not prevent pain, it intensifies it. Fear does not create safety, it creates anxiety. When you stop resisting, you are not making yourself vulnerable. You are allowing yourself to be real. Reality is not the enemy. Reality is the teacher. The Buddha pointed out that life includes suffering. This suffering is not a punishment. It is a natural part of existence. But the suffering caused by resistance is optional. It is created by the mind. When you stop resisting, the mind stops creating unnecessary suffering. Pain may still arise, but it becomes manageable. It becomes just another passing experience, not a life sentence. To release resistance, you must learn to observe your thoughts and emotions without judgment. You must learn to soften your inner grip, to breathe deeply, to return to the body, to be present. When you observe resistance rather than being consumed by it, you create inner space. You begin to understand your own patterns. You begin to see how much peace you have been blocking with your own expectations. You begin to rediscover the freedom that was always available to you. Resistance ends not when life becomes perfect, but when you stop demanding perfection from life. Resistance ends when you begin trusting the flow of existence. Resistance ends when you allow yourself to let go of the need to control every outcome. Resistance ends when you accept that life is not happening against you, but through you. And this is where peace begins, not as a reward, not as a gift from outside, but as a natural result of aligning yourself with reality. Peace is not fragile. Peace is not distant. Peace is your natural state when you are no longer fighting against what is. Peace is already here. Resistance keeps you from seeing it. When you understand this deeply, not intellectually, but experientially, you awaken to a new way of existing. You begin to meet challenges with clarity rather than fear. You begin to see obstacles as part of the path rather than interruptions to it. You begin to discover a strength that does not arise from resistance, but from openness. This openness is the doorway to inner freedom. If you want to find peace, you must learn to end resistance. And to end resistance, you must begin by seeing it clearly within yourself. If this teaching is helping you awaken deeper wisdom, remember to subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the next chapters of this journey. The art of acceptance. How letting go opens the door to inner freedom. To truly understand why peace begins when resistance ends, you must explore the profound nature of acceptance. Acceptance is one of the most misunderstood concepts in spiritual practice. Many people believe acceptance means agreeing with everything, staying passive, giving up, or allowing others to mistreat you. But this is not what Buddhist teaching means by acceptance. Acceptance, in the deepest sense, is the clarity that arises when you stop fighting reality. It is a form of inner wisdom, not weakness. It is a courageous act of seeing things as they are, rather than how the mind wishes them to be. Acceptance is the doorway to freedom, because it dissolves the inner tension created by resistance. When you accept, you stop trying to rewrite the present moment. You stop clinging to expectations that cannot be fulfilled. You stop demanding that life be different. And in that stopping, there is relief, there is space, there is peace. Acceptance is not an emotion. Acceptance is not a thought. Acceptance is a state of being, a quality of awareness, a softening of the heart. It does not require you to like the situation. It only asks you to acknowledge that this moment exists. This is what is here. This is what life is revealing now. This clarity transforms the entire inner landscape. It allows you to respond with wisdom instead of reacting with fear. It allows you to take action when needed, but without the emotional turbulence that clouds judgment. It is only from a state of acceptance that true action becomes possible. When the mind is in resistance, every action is contaminated by fear, frustration, or anger. Resistance creates confusion. It shrinks your perspective. It narrows your vision. It makes you act from a place of contraction. Acceptance, on the other hand, expands your awareness. It gives you space to breathe, to observe, to choose. It creates a stable foundation for wise action. Acceptance opens the door to clarity, and clarity opens the door to transformation. Many people believe that acceptance is a passive act, but within Buddhist wisdom, acceptance is one of the most active forces in the world. Acceptance aligns you with reality. It places you in harmony with the natural flow of existence. This harmony allows you to navigate life with grace. The river that flows around rocks does not do so out of weakness. but out of understanding that the nature of water is to move, to adapt, to continue forward. Humans forget this. They try to push through the rock instead. They try to force their way through life. Acceptance means remembering your true nature. It means flowing rather than resisting. One of the most profound truths of life is that you cannot control everything. You cannot control what other people think, how they behave, what they say, or how they value you. You cannot control every outcome, every circumstance, every possibility. And yet, the mind is conditioned to try. This constant striving for control creates endless suffering because resistance emerges every time reality fails to comply. Acceptance is the recognition that control is limited. This recognition is not pessimism, it is liberation. It frees you from the burden of carrying the world on your shoulders. It frees you from the exhausting illusion that everything depends on your effort. It frees you from the anxiety that arises whenever life moves in a direction you did not plan. Acceptance is not the end of responsibility. It is the beginning of wisdom. You still act. You still choose. You still move forward, but you no longer fight the natural order of things. You no longer resist the flow of life. This shift changes everything. Acceptance also means recognizing the impermanent nature of all things. Nothing stays the same forever. No emotion lasts eternally. No situation remains fixed. No identity is permanent. When you resist impermanence, you suffer. When you accept impermanence, you gain freedom. Impermanence is not an enemy. It is the force that makes growth possible. If nothing changed, you could never evolve. You could never heal. You could never awaken. The seasons change. The tides rise and fall. The body ages. Relationships shift. Thoughts come and go. Feelings appear and disappear. Everything arises and fades. This is the nature of existence. Acceptance is the ability to move with this flow rather than fight against it. When you cling to what is passing, you suffer. When you push away what is arriving, you suffer. Acceptance invites you to meet each moment with openness. It invites you to experience life without clinging and without aversion. Acceptance is not resignation but presence. It is not apathy, but awareness. It is not stagnation, but flow. It is the wisdom of embracing what is real. One of the deepest causes of inner resistance is the refusal to feel certain emotions. You may resist sadness, fear, loneliness, anger, disappointment, shame, or grief. You may resist vulnerability. You may resist uncertainty. But what you resist does not disappear. It becomes stronger. When you suppress an emotion, it buries itself in the body. It becomes tension, stress, insomnia, anxiety, exhaustion, or illness. When you avoid an emotion, it follows you. It repeats itself. It seeks expression. Acceptance means allowing yourself to feel. It means letting emotions move through you rather than locking them inside. It means sitting with discomfort rather than running from it. Emotions are not dangerous. They are waves of energy moving through consciousness. They arise, they peak, they dissolve. When you accept your emotions, you allow the wave to complete its cycle. When you resist, you freeze the wave in place. This creates suffering. Acceptance brings healing because it allows the emotional energy to move. To accept an emotion does not mean indulging in it or identifying with it. It means acknowledging that it is here. It means observing it without judgment. It means allowing it to exist without assuming it defines you. You are not your sadness. You are the awareness that observes sadness. You are not your fear. You are the presence that witnesses fear. You are not your anger. You are the space in which anger appears. Acceptance reconnects you with this deeper identity. Resistance strengthens the illusion that you are the emotion. Acceptance reveals that you are the consciousness experiencing the emotion. This insight creates inner freedom. It allows you to feel without drowning. It allows you to experience discomfort without believing it is permanent. It allows you to remain grounded even when the emotional world becomes turbulent. Another dimension of acceptance involves accepting your past. Many people live in resistance to their own history. They resist mistakes, regret decisions, deny memories, or resent situations that shaped them. They resist who they were. They resist what happened. They resist unresolved wounds. This resistance traps them in the past. Acceptance does not mean approving of everything that happened. It means recognizing that it is already done. The past cannot be changed, but it can be understood. It can be healed. It can be integrated. Acceptance means letting the past stop controlling the present. It means allowing yourself to evolve beyond old identities and old pain. When you resist your past, you carry it like a burden. When you accept your past, you free yourself from its weight. Acceptance also involves accepting others as they are. This is one of the hardest aspects of spiritual practice, because the mind constantly wants others to behave according to its expectations. You may resist the way someone treats you, the way they think, the decisions they make, the way they interpret life. This resistance does not change the other person. It only creates suffering within you. Acceptance does not mean tolerating harmful behavior. It does not mean staying in unhealthy environments. It means understanding that you cannot control another person's nature. You can communicate, set boundaries, choose distance if needed, or walk away. But acceptance means releasing the illusion that someone else must change for you to be at peace. Acceptance removes the emotional charge. It allows you to act clearly without resentment, fear, or attachment. When you accept others, you stop wasting energy fighting their reality. You reclaim your inner power. Acceptance of the present moment is perhaps the most transformative practice of all. The present moment is the only place where life exists. The mind often resists the present by escaping into the future or the past. It fantasizes, regrets, analyzes, worries, imagines, projects, and anticipates. This constant movement creates tension because the mind refuses to rest in what is. Acceptance means returning to the now. It means grounding yourself in reality. It means noticing what is happening without judgment. The breath, the sensations, the environment, the thoughts, the emotions. Presence dissolves resistance because resistance requires time. You resist what happened or what might happen. But in the present moment, there is no past to resist and no future to fear. There is only this moment, only what is here, only awareness, only being. When you accept the present moment, you enter a state of deep peace. This peace is not the absence of difficulty, but the absence of resistance. You may still face challenges, but you meet them with clarity rather than fear. You may still experience discomfort, but you hold it with compassion. You may still feel uncertainty, but you are not overwhelmed by it. Presence allows you to breathe again. It allows you to rest. It allows you to see that most of your suffering comes not from the moment itself, but from the mind's interpretation of the moment. Acceptance reveals this truth. Letting go is the natural extension of acceptance. You cannot accept without letting go, and you cannot let go without accepting. Letting go does not mean losing. It does not mean forgetting. It does not mean giving up hope. Letting go means releasing your attachment to how things should be. It means loosening the grip of expectation. It means no longer forcing outcomes. It means trusting the flow of life. When you let go, you allow life to unfold naturally. You stop interfering with the path. You stop trying to control what cannot be controlled. Letting go requires courage because it requires trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in life, trust in the wisdom of the present moment. Letting go also means releasing identities you have outgrown. Every identity is a mental construct. People cling to identities because they believe identity equals security. But clinging to old versions of yourself prevents growth. You are not meant to stay the same. You are meant to evolve. Acceptance means welcoming this evolution. It means allowing yourself to become who you truly are, not who you were expected to be. Letting go of old identities is a form of spiritual rebirth. You free yourself from the limitations of your past. You step into the spaciousness of your potential. Letting go also means releasing relationships that no longer serve your growth, beliefs that no longer reflect your truth, habits that no longer support your well-being, dreams that no longer align with your heart. It means honoring the natural cycles of life. Everything has a time of arising and a time of falling away. Letting go respects this cycle. Resistance tries to stop it. Acceptance moves with it. Letting go is not a loss, it is an opening. To cultivate acceptance, you must develop awareness. You must learn to observe your inner world. Notice when resistance arises. Notice how it feels in the body. Notice the stories the mind tells. Notice the emotions that surface. Notice the tension in the breath. Awareness is the first step. Awareness reveals the inner dynamics of resistance. Without awareness, resistance controls you unconsciously. With awareness, you gain choice. You gain the ability to soften. You gain the ability to breathe. You gain the ability to relax into the present moment. Acceptance becomes possible. Acceptance also requires compassion. You cannot force yourself to accept. Acceptance grows naturally when you treat yourself with kindness. Be gentle with yourself. You are learning. You are evolving. You are shedding old beliefs and habits. This process takes time. Approach yourself with patience. Compassion dissolves resistance by softening the heart. A soft heart is not weak, it is strong. It is flexible. It can adapt. It can withstand life's storms without breaking. Acceptance deepens when you learn to trust life. Trust does not mean believing everything will be easy or perfect. Trust means recognizing that life is wiser than your fears. Trust means acknowledging that every moment, even the difficult ones, contains a lesson, a growth, a transformation. Trust means understanding that life is not random. There is a deeper intelligence guiding the flow of events. When you trust life, you release the need to control every detail. You allow yourself to rest in the flow. You let go of unnecessary resistance. Acceptance reveals the truth that peace is not something you search for. Peace is something you uncover by removing what blocks it. Resistance blocks peace. Acceptance reveals it. When you accept what is, you stop fighting reality. The inner storm calms, the mind clears, the heart opens. Peace emerges naturally. You do not create peace, you return to it. Peace is your natural state. Resistance is the disturbance. Acceptance is the healing. As you integrate acceptance into your daily life, you begin to notice subtle changes. Your reactions become gentler, your thoughts become clearer, your emotions become easier to hold. You judge less, you breathe more deeply, you move with greater grace. You begin to trust your inner wisdom. You begin to feel connected to something larger than yourself. You begin to recognize the sacredness of each moment. Acceptance transforms your entire relationship with life. It teaches you to walk through the world with softness rather than tension. It teaches you to let go of the struggle and rediscover the flow. Acceptance does not eliminate challenges, but it changes how you meet them. Instead of resisting, you respond. Instead of fearing, you observe. Instead of clinging, you release. This transformation is profound. It is the foundation of inner peace. Peace is not found in perfect circumstances. Peace is found in perfect alignment with the present moment. Acceptance is the path. Resistance is the barrier. Peace begins when resistance ends. If this message is awakening something meaningful within you, remember to subscribe to the channel so you can continue this journey of deep Buddhist wisdom and inner transformation. The illusion of control and the wisdom of surrender. To grasp the full essence of the teaching that peace begins when resistance ends, We must now examine one of the most powerful illusions the human mind ever created, the illusion of control. This illusion is the root of much human suffering, for it keeps the mind trapped in endless cycles of tension, frustration, and disappointment. The desire to control is born from fear, from the deep insecurity that lies at the heart of the ego. It is the belief that if you can just manage, plan, and manipulate life precisely enough, you can avoid pain, prevent uncertainty, and ensure happiness. But life, in its infinite wisdom, was never designed to obey human will. The flow of existence is too vast, too subtle, too interconnected to be commanded by one small individual consciousness. The Buddha saw this truth clearly. He observed that grasping, clinging to control, is the fundamental source of dukkha, the unsatisfactoriness that permeates human experience. The mind seeks control to escape fear, but in doing so, it creates more fear, because every attempt to dominate what cannot be dominated leads inevitably to anxiety and loss. The more you try to hold on, the more you realize that life slips through your fingers. The tighter you grip, the more painful it becomes when life moves in its own way. Control is resistance in disguise. It is resistance masked as strength, discipline, and responsibility. The modern world celebrates control. It teaches people to master their time, their emotions, their careers, their relationships. While discipline and intention are useful, the obsession with control is a disease of the spirit. It is the refusal to accept that uncertainty is a natural part of existence. It is the denial of impermanence, the fear of surrender, the inability to trust. The illusion of control is seductive because it gives the ego a false sense of power. It whispers, "If I can just plan perfectly, I will be safe. If I can just get everyone to act as I wish, I will be at peace. If I can predict every outcome, I will be free from suffering." But this is a lie. You can never control life, because life is not a mechanism, it is a mystery. You can never control others, because others are not extensions of your will. They are beings with their own paths. You can never control the future, because the future does not exist. It is only a mental projection. The more you chase control, the more distant peace becomes. True peace begins when you finally see that you are never in control and that you never needed to be. When you believe you are in control, you live in constant tension. Every plan, every goal, every expectation becomes a potential source of anxiety, because the mind knows, deep down, that things can go differently. You may tell yourself that you are calm and confident, but beneath that confidence lies fear. Fear that something will break your plan. Fear that someone will betray you. Fear that life will surprise you. And life always surprises you because the essence of reality is change. Control is not compatible with change. The two cannot coexist. When you resist change, you resist life itself. Surrender is the art of aligning with the current of existence. It is the recognition that there is a rhythm far wiser than your personal preferences. Surrender does not mean doing nothing. It means ceasing to fight what already is. It means learning to act from flow instead of force. It means releasing the illusion that your security depends on controlling the uncontrollable. The ego fears surrender because it interprets surrender as defeat. The ego believes that to let go is to lose, but surrender is not loss, it is liberation. When you surrender, you stop carrying what was never yours to carry. You stop trying to control the wind. You stop trying to hold back the tide. You stop exhausting yourself in a battle against the inevitable. Surrender is the moment you step out of the storm and realize that the sky was clear all along. The mind, however, resists this because it is addicted to doing. It believes it must fix, plan, protect, manage. But doing without awareness becomes struggle. Surrender invites awareness back into the center of your being. When you surrender, You shift from doing to being, from force to flow, from control to trust. This is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is remembering that you are part of something greater, something that moves through you and around you. You do not need to control life because you are life itself. The wave does not need to control the ocean, it is the ocean. To surrender does not mean you give up responsibility or effort. It means you change the quality of your effort. Instead of acting from fear, you act from clarity. Instead of struggling to impose your will, you cooperate with the unfolding of existence. This is how the masters live. The Buddha did not resist life. He flowed with it. When challenges came, he faced them with mindfulness, not resistance. When pleasure arose, he enjoyed it without clinging. When pain appeared, he observed it without aversion. This is surrender. Surrender is awareness free from control. It is the ability to meet each moment as it is, without demanding that it be otherwise. In this state, your actions become powerful because they are aligned with the truth of the present moment, not with the illusions of the mind. The illusion of control manifests in subtle ways. You may think you only want to organize your life, but what you are really doing is trying to protect yourself from uncertainty. You may think you want to help others, but beneath that desire is often the need to shape them according to your own ideals. You may think you want success, but sometimes success becomes an attempt to control how others see you. The mind is clever in disguising its need for control as virtue. But when you look deeper, you see that control always stems from fear. Fear of loss, fear of rejection, fear of impermanence, fear of the unknown. Surrender dissolves fear because fear cannot survive in the light of trust. When you trust the flow of life, you are no longer terrified by change. You no longer panic when plans fail. You no longer need everything to go your way. You find stability not in control, but in inner alignment. Trusting life does not mean everything will be pleasant. It means you are open to all experiences, knowing that each has a purpose. The difficult moments teach humility. The losses teach compassion. The silence teaches patience. The uncertainty teaches faith. When you stop resisting, you begin to see that even pain has its wisdom. Every storm refines your awareness. Every disappointment breaks an illusion. Every ending prepares you for a new beginning. Control prevents you from seeing these gifts because control filters life through the lens of fear. It says, this is wrong. This should not be happening. Surrender, on the other hand, opens your perception. It says, this too is part of the path. Through surrender, even suffering becomes sacred, because it reveals what was hidden within you. In truth, surrender is the highest form of intelligence. It requires deep insight into the nature of reality. The more you see clearly, the less you need to control. When you realize that everything is interdependent, you see that no event exists in isolation. The universe is a web of causes and conditions infinitely beyond human understanding. Every moment is the result of countless factors, most of which are invisible to you. To think you can control this infinite complexity is not wisdom, it is ignorance. The wise person understands this, and therefore lives with humility. They act when action is needed and rest when rest is needed. They plant seeds, but do not demand how or when the fruit must grow. They trust that life's intelligence is greater than their own. This is not fatalism. This is harmony with reality. Surrender brings peace because it dissolves the constant inner conflict between what is and what the mind wants. In the state of surrender, there is no fight left inside you. You still experience challenges, but they no longer consume you. You still feel emotions, but they no longer define you. You still think thoughts, but you no longer believe them blindly. You become the observer, the silent witness to the dance of life. The witness is free because it does not resist. It allows everything to arise and pass away. The witness does not grasp the pleasant nor reject the unpleasant. It simply watches with infinite patience and understanding. When you begin to identify with the witness rather than the controller, you begin to taste real freedom. Many people fear surrender because they believe it will make them vulnerable. But vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability is openness, and openness is the natural state of the awakened heart. When you are open, you are not defenseless, you are alive. You can feel the full range of human experience. You can love deeply because you are no longer protecting yourself from pain. You can listen fully because you are no longer protecting your ego. You can live authentically because you are no longer performing for control. Surrender makes you real. It returns you to simplicity. It brings you back to the raw truth of existence. There is a paradox at the heart of surrender. When you stop trying to control life, life begins to work more harmoniously. When you let go, you stop interfering with the natural order. Things begin to align on their own. The mind believes that control brings order, but often it creates chaos. It overthinks, overanalyzes, overplans. Surrender quiets the mind. In that stillness, intuition arises. Intuition is the voice of the deeper self, the intelligence of the present moment. When you surrender control, you become receptive to this inner guidance. You begin to act not from fear, but from alignment. You make decisions that feel right, not forced. You sense the timing of things naturally. You no longer need to push. You simply move when movement arises. This is effortless living. This is what Zen calls Wu Wei, action without struggle. To live in surrender is to live in peace with change. It is to understand that every experience is temporary, that nothing is lost because nothing was ever truly yours to begin with. You are a traveler moving through infinite forms. The body changes, the mind evolves, relationships transform, worlds appear and disappear, yet something within you remains untouched, the pure awareness that observes it all. That awareness is your true nature. When you live from that awareness, control loses its meaning. What is there to control when you are one with everything? What can be lost when nothing was separate from you? The illusion of control dissolves in the light of unity. The journey towards surrender is not a single event but a gradual process. It begins with small acts of letting go. You start noticing where you cling, to plans, to people, to beliefs, to outcomes. You begin to release one thread at a time. You practice acceptance in daily moments. When traffic delays you, when someone misunderstands you, when plans change unexpectedly. These small acts of acceptance train the mind to relax. Over time, you begin to trust the flow more deeply. You begin to see that even when things do not go your way, they often lead you somewhere better, or at least somewhere necessary for your growth. Surrender grows through experience. Every moment of trust strengthens it. Every time you let go of resistance, your peace deepens. Eventually, surrender becomes your natural way of being. You stop struggling against life because you see that life is not against you. You stop fighting circumstances because you recognize that everything arises from the same source. You stop trying to control people because you realize that everyone is walking their own sacred path. In this state, life becomes lighter. You move through the world with ease. You speak with authenticity. You act with integrity. You rest without guilt. You love without fear. You exist without needing to justify your existence. You become free. True surrender is not something the ego can achieve through effort. It happens when the ego begins to dissolve. When the illusion of separateness fades, surrender arises naturally. You cannot force surrender because forcing is another form of control. You can only become aware of resistance and gently let it soften. You can only be present, breathe, and allow life to unfold. Surrender is the fruit of awareness. It blossoms when the mind becomes quiet, when the heart opens, when trust replaces fear. In deep meditation, when the mind releases its grip completely, You can experience the profound stillness that lies beneath all activity. In that stillness, there is no controller, no controlled, no resistance. There is only being. This is the essence of awakening. The awakened mind is a surrendered mind. It is free from the illusion of control. It moves through life like a mirror, reflecting everything, grasping nothing. This is what it means to be at peace, not to escape the world, but to see it clearly, to live fully within it without conflict. Surrender also brings humility. You realize that you are not the author of life, but a participant in its unfolding. You begin to respect the intelligence of the universe. You begin to see that even the most painful moments are part of a larger harmony. You bow to the mystery. You stop demanding answers. You begin to trust the silence. This humility softens the ego's arrogance. It transforms struggle into reverence. You no longer ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Instead, you begin to wonder, "What is this teaching me?" Life becomes a teacher, not a threat. Every experience becomes sacred. Peace begins when resistance ends, and resistance ends through surrender. When you surrender, you are not giving up. You are coming home. You are returning to the natural state of harmony with existence. You are no longer separate, no longer divided, no longer at war with what is. You are simply here, awake, open, alive. In that presence, peace is not something you achieve. It is what remains when the illusion of control disappears. It is the silence after the storm. It is the stillness beneath the waves. It is the song of existence itself. If you wish to know peace, learn the wisdom of surrender. Let life move through you instead of fighting it. Let the river carry you instead of swimming against it. Let go of the need to control and discover the vast intelligence that has always been guiding you. Trust that whatever unfolds is part of a larger perfection that the mind cannot yet see. Surrender to this moment, for it is all that truly exists. If this teaching is opening your heart to deeper awareness, remember to subscribe to the channel so you can continue walking this path of inner freedom and Buddhist wisdom. Stillness is the path, embracing the quiet heart. When the mind finally becomes tired of its own noise, when it exhausts itself chasing answers, predictions, and explanations, a quiet space begins to open inside. This space is not created by effort nor by discipline. It emerges when all effort stops. It is the space of stillness, the silent dimension beneath the surface of all movement, beneath every thought, every emotion, every story. This stillness is not emptiness in the negative sense. It is fullness without form. It is the unspoken presence that the Buddha pointed toward when he said that liberation is not found in adding more to life, but in removing what obscures it. When resistance ends, when the inner struggle ceases, stillness reveals itself naturally. It has always been there, hidden behind the turbulence of desire and fear. Stillness is your natural state. You were born from it, you return to it, and it is present even now, beneath every sound, every sensation, every heartbeat. To embrace stillness is to recognize that peace is not something you must create. You do not have to build it, chase it, or earn it. Peace exists when you stop disturbing it. Like a lake that reflects the sky when its waters are calm, your consciousness reflects truth when it is still. The restlessness of the mind, its judgments, comparisons, and projections, creates ripples that distort the reflection. But when the mind quiets, when you stop resisting what is, clarity appears. This is the essence of meditation, not to force silence, but to rest in it. Stillness is not an escape from life, it is an entrance into the heart of it. In stillness, you encounter reality as it is, unfiltered by opinion, unclouded by thought. The human mind, however, is addicted to motion. It fears silence because silence exposes what lies beneath distraction. When there is no noise, no task, no conversation, no entertainment, you begin to meet yourself. And for many, this encounter is uncomfortable. Beneath the surface activity, the mind stores unresolved pain, buried emotions, forgotten fears. When you sit in stillness, all these hidden energies rise to the surface, seeking release. This is why so many people avoid silence. They equate stillness with emptiness, but it is not emptiness they fear, it is themselves. Yet facing oneself is the beginning of freedom. The only way to heal the turbulence within is to allow it to arise in awareness. Stillness is not avoidance. It is courageous presence. It is the willingness to face what is without escape. In Buddhism, the practice of mindfulness teaches this very principle: awareness without resistance. When you sit and breathe, observing without judgment, you are not trying to change anything. You are simply watching. Thoughts come, feelings arise, sensations pass, and you remain the witness. This witnessing is the door to stillness. The mind wants to control experience, to categorize and label, but awareness only observes. Awareness allows life to unfold without interference. As you deepen in mindfulness, the distance between you and your thoughts expands. You begin to realize that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness in which they appear. And as you rest more often in that awareness, a profound peace begins to settle within you. The noise of life continues, but it no longer disturbs your center. True stillness is not dependent on external quiet. You can be in a busy city, surrounded by chaos, and still remain inwardly silent. This inner silence is not the absence of sound, but the absence of resistance. When the heart is free of resistance, it does not matter what the world is doing. You become like the eye of a storm, untouched by the swirling winds around you. This is why monks and masters can live in simplicity and serenity, even amidst turmoil. Their peace is not based on circumstance. It arises from inner alignment. They have learned the art of stillness, the art of non-resistance, the art of resting as awareness itself. The path to stillness begins with observation, but it matures through surrender. You cannot force yourself to be still any more than you can force a pond to stop rippling. The act of forcing creates new ripples. Stillness arises when you stop trying to be still. It comes when you stop chasing peace and simply allow peace to be. This is the paradox of spiritual practice. The harder you try to reach peace, the further it moves from you, because the very effort is a form of resistance. Peace arrives when you let go of striving, when you release the inner tension that demands change. To rest in stillness means to trust the natural intelligence of existence. It means to let life breathe through you without interference. It means to allow each moment to be exactly as it is. Stillness does not mean inaction. It is not laziness or passivity. Stillness is the quality of pure attention within action. When you move from stillness, your actions become precise, effortless, compassionate, and wise. Stillness is not about doing nothing. It is about doing without inner conflict. It is acting from presence rather than reaction. In this way, stillness is not the opposite of motion. It is the space in which motion happens. The still heart is the background of all experience. You can speak from stillness, walk from stillness, love from stillness, create from stillness. When stillness pervades your actions, even simple tasks become sacred. Washing dishes, walking, breathing, all become expressions of the same quiet presence. This is why the Buddha emphasized mindfulness in every activity. The goal was never to escape the world, but to live within it without losing the still center. The restless mind resists stillness because it is afraid of losing identity. The ego thrives on activity. It needs to feel in control, to fix, to plan, to judge. When you sit in silence, the ego begins to dissolve because its stories no longer have an audience. The moment you stop engaging with the mind's commentary, its grip weakens. But this process can feel uncomfortable at first. You may feel anxious, bored, or restless. The ego interprets stillness as death because it cannot exist without movement. Yet when you stay with the discomfort, when you breathe through the urge to escape, something miraculous happens. The noise begins to fade. A deep quiet emerges, not forced, but natural. This quiet is not empty, it is alive. It vibrates with awareness. It holds everything in compassion. It is the peace that surpasses understanding. Stillness is not an achievement, it is a remembering. You do not attain it, you return to it. It has been hidden beneath layers of thought, emotion, and conditioning, but it never left you. Like the sun obscured by clouds, stillness shines constantly beneath the mental weather. When you meditate, you are not creating stillness. You are removing the clouds. The clouds of resistance, judgment, and fear slowly dissolve, revealing the vast sky of awareness that was always present. This sky cannot be disturbed. Thoughts may pass through it, storms may come and go, but the sky remains untouched. To rest in that sky is to live in freedom. You no longer identify with the passing weather of emotions. You identify with the space in which they occur. The cultivation of stillness requires patience. The modern mind seeks quick results, instant enlightenment, immediate relief. But stillness unfolds slowly, like dawn breaking over a mountain. It deepens with practice, with humility, with repetition. Every time you sit in silence, you strengthen your connection to it. Every time you choose observation over reaction, you expand the space within. Stillness grows quietly, beneath awareness, until one day you realize that it has become the foundation of your being. You respond to life not from habit, but from clarity. You act not from fear, but from wisdom. You love not from need, but from wholeness. This is the flowering of stillness. Stillness also teaches compassion. When the mind is noisy, it sees separation everywhere. It divides the world into self and other, right and wrong, mine and yours. Stillness dissolves this illusion. In silence, the boundaries soften. You begin to sense the interconnectedness of all beings. You realize that every person's pain is your own, that every joy echoes within you. The still heart is not indifferent. It is infinitely compassionate because it sees unity. When you rest in stillness, love arises naturally. Not the emotional love that comes and goes, but a quiet benevolence, a gentle warmth toward all that exists. This love is the essence of Buddhist compassion. It does not choose, it does not judge, it does not exclude. It flows from the understanding that all beings suffer when they resist, and all beings are freed when they surrender. In the depth of stillness, you begin to see that peace is not an external condition, but an internal alignment. The world can be in chaos, yet you remain grounded. Storms come and go, yet the center remains unmoved. This is not indifference, but strength. The still mind is like a mountain, firm, rooted, silent, yet alive with awareness. Nothing can shake it, because it does not cling. The winds of pleasure and pain blow against it, but it stands in equanimity. This equanimity is not detachment from life. It is intimate engagement without grasping. The mountain does not reject the clouds that pass over it. It simply allows them. In the same way, the still heart allows all experiences without resistance. When you cultivate stillness, you begin to notice how much of your suffering was self-created. The noise of worry, regret, comparison, and judgment begins to fade, and with it, your sense of heaviness. You start to see that the world has always been neutral. It is the mind that paints it with colors of joy or sorrow. When the mind is still, you see things as they are. You stop projecting meaning onto everything. You begin to rest in the simplicity of being. This simplicity is profound because it is free from concepts. It is pure awareness, beyond interpretation. Stillness gives you the eyes to see reality without distortion. Stillness is not the absence of life, it is the awareness of life. It is the silent witness of everything arising and passing away. When you live in this awareness, you realize that nothing is truly lost. Every ending is just a transformation. Every death is a doorway. Every silence is a message. In stillness, you begin to perceive the sacred rhythm that governs all things. You no longer fear the unknown because you can feel its wisdom. You no longer rush time because you sense its perfect unfolding. You no longer demand that life hurry to match your plans. You begin to trust. Trust is born from stillness, and trust is the end of resistance. Stillness also deepens gratitude. When the mind is quiet, it becomes sensitive to the smallest details. The warmth of sunlight on your face, the sound of the wind through the trees, the rhythm of your own breath. You begin to notice the miracle of existence, the way everything arises effortlessly, the way life sustains itself without your control. Gratitude grows naturally when you realize how little you must do to belong here. The heart fills with reverence for the simplicity of being alive. This gratitude is not an emotion you force, it is the fragrance of stillness itself. Stillness changes how you relate to time. In stillness, past and future dissolve. The mind can no longer cling to what was or worry about what will be. Only this moment remains. And in this moment everything is whole. There is nothing missing, nothing to reach, nothing to fix. The need to hurry fades. The compulsion to chase meaning dissolves. You realize that life is already complete, that this breath, this awareness, this silence is enough. The mind, accustomed to constant motion, may rebel against this simplicity. It may whisper that something is wrong, that you must do more, achieve more, understand more. But as you rest in stillness, those whispers lose their power. You begin to see that the search for more was the very source of your restlessness. The end of searching is the beginning of peace. The world outside may never be still, but the world within can be. This inner stillness becomes your refuge, your home, your sanctuary. You can return to it anytime, anywhere. All it takes is awareness, awareness of the breath, awareness of the body, awareness of the space between thoughts. The door to stillness is always open. You only need to step through it. You need not fight to find it. It is here now, in the quiet space of your attention. When stillness deepens, even death loses its sting. You begin to see that what dies is only form, not essence. The stillness within you has no beginning and no end. It was present before birth and remains after death. It watches the rise and fall of all phenomena with quiet understanding. To live from this stillness is to live without fear. You no longer cling to life because you know you are life itself. You no longer dread endings because you see that everything ends only to begin again. This realization is the ultimate freedom. Peace begins when resistance ends, and resistance ends in stillness. When you surrender to the quiet heart, you rediscover your true nature. You are not the restless mind. You are the silent awareness behind it. You are not the storm. You are the sky that holds it. You are not the noise. You are the listening. This is what the Buddha pointed to when he spoke of nirvana. Not a distant paradise, but the cessation of inner turbulence, the return to the stillness that has always been here. If you can live from this stillness, even for a few moments each day, your entire experience of life will change. You will find beauty where you once saw pain. You will find patience where you once felt urgency. You will find compassion where you once felt judgment. The world will remain the same, but your perception of it will transform completely. You will understand that peace was never a goal. It was your nature all along. If this teaching has touched something within you, remember to subscribe to the channel so you can continue exploring the profound stillness and freedom that Buddhist wisdom reveals. The return to peace. Living without resistance. When the seeker finally understands that peace is not something to be reached, but something to be revealed, the path becomes lighter. Life no longer appears as a series of obstacles to overcome, but as a sacred unfolding to be witnessed. You begin to realize that peace has never left you. It was only hidden beneath layers of resistance, fear, desire, and identification. From the very beginning, peace was your essence, not your achievement. You are not a being who must earn peace through effort. You are peace temporarily disguised as a person. The more deeply this truth sinks into awareness, the more your relationship with existence changes. You no longer wake up with the feeling that you must fight your way through the day. You stop measuring the world by what it gives or withholds. You begin to live in harmony with what is, accepting the movement of life as a river accepts its own current. Living without resistance does not mean living without boundaries or direction. It means living without inner conflict. It means that your actions flow naturally from the wisdom of the present moment rather than from the anxiety of the mind. When resistance ends, your energy stops being wasted on unnecessary struggle. That energy becomes available for love, for presence, for creativity, for clarity. You stop reacting and begin responding. You stop fighting against circumstances and begin aligning with them. In this way, peace becomes not a retreat from life, but a way of being within life. Every breath, every step, every glance becomes part of a vast dance that unfolds effortlessly. To live without resistance is to live awake, to move with awareness rather than against it. The modern world teaches that struggle is noble, that tension proves commitment, that constant striving is the only path to success. But struggle born from resistance is not strength, it is blindness. It is the ego's attempt to prove its existence by fighting against the flow of reality. Real strength is not found in resistance, but in surrender. It is the courage to remain open in the face of uncertainty, to trust when the outcome is unknown, to love when there is no guarantee. The Buddha taught that the greatest victory is not over others, but over oneself. To live without resistance is to conquer the restless mind that seeks control and security. It is to transcend the endless cycle of craving and aversion. It is to return home to the simplicity of being. To live without resistance requires a profound shift in perception. You must stop seeing life as a series of separate events and begin to recognize the unity that underlies them all. Everything is connected. Every joy and sorrow, every gain and loss, every rise and fall is part of the same unfolding. When you resist, you break this harmony. You create an artificial division between what you like and what you reject. But when you accept all of it, life becomes whole again. You begin to see that even pain serves a purpose, that even confusion leads to clarity, that even endings prepare the soil for new beginnings. Resistance blocks this understanding because it demands that reality fit the narrow frame of personal preference. Non-resistance opens the frame. It allows you to see that life's intelligence is vast, intricate, and compassionate in ways the mind cannot comprehend. Living without resistance is not a philosophy to be adopted, but an experience to be lived. You must feel it in your breath, in your body, in your thoughts. You must observe how resistance appears moment by moment, how the body tenses when someone disagrees with you, how the mind contracts when plans change, how the heart closes when disappointment arrives. These are the small signals of resistance. Awareness of them is the beginning of freedom. You cannot release what you do not see. When you start noticing resistance as it arises, you bring it into the light of consciousness, and in that light, it begins to dissolve. You realize that most of your pain comes not from life itself, but from your refusal to let life be what it is. Awareness transforms resistance into acceptance. Non-resistance does not mean you stop caring about change or improvement. It means that your care is no longer driven by fear or control. You can still work toward goals, but you do so without anxiety. You can still express boundaries, but without hostility. You can still say no, but without anger. You can still dream, but without clinging. When resistance ends, even your ambitions become peaceful. You act from joy rather than from lack. You create from abundance rather than from fear. This is the secret of effortless action. It is not the absence of effort, but the absence of struggle. In non-resistance, you do what needs to be done, but you remain unattached to results. You trust the process. You act with sincerity and then let go. This letting go is the essence of freedom. Living without resistance is also living without unnecessary stories. The mind constantly interprets reality through narratives. This shouldn't have happened. I was wronged. Things must go my way. I need this to be happy. These stories are the fuel of resistance. They trap you in a mental version of reality instead of allowing you to experience life directly. The practice of non-resistance requires you to drop the story and return to the raw experience. If there is pain, feel it. If there is joy, feel it. If there is confusion, observe it. The moment you stop adding commentary, the moment you stop arguing with what is, peace appears. It appears not because the situation changed, but because your relationship with it changed. You are no longer fighting. You are witnessing. One of the deepest aspects of living without resistance is learning to accept uncertainty. The mind fears the unknown because it cannot control it. But the unknown is not your enemy. It is the field of infinite possibilities. Everything new, everything beautiful, everything transformative arises from the unknown. When you resist uncertainty, you close yourself off from life's creative intelligence. When you open to it, you step into harmony with the mystery of existence. You begin to sense that life knows how to unfold. The seed does not resist the darkness of the soil. It trusts the process. It knows that the darkness is not its end, but its beginning. The same is true for you. The unknown is not the void. It is the womb of creation. To live without resistance is to trust this process completely. As resistance fades, gratitude arises naturally. You no longer take life for granted. You begin to see every moment as a gift, every breath as a miracle, every challenge as a teacher. Gratitude is the flower that blooms from the soil of acceptance. It does not require perfection, it only requires awareness. Even pain can become sacred when viewed through the lens of gratitude. You begin to thank life not only for the pleasant moments, but for the difficult ones that shaped your understanding. This gratitude softens your heart, making it impossible to remain in resistance. You start meeting the world with reverence rather than judgment. You realize that everything that happens, whether you call it good or bad, is a doorway to awakening. Another dimension of non-resistance is forgiveness. You cannot live without resistance if you continue to carry resentment. Anger and blame are forms of attachment. They keep you tied to the past. To forgive is not to condone what happened. It is to release yourself from the burden of resistance. Forgiveness is an act of freedom. It allows the heart to breathe again. When you forgive, you let go of the story that keeps the pain alive. You say to life, I am willing to be at peace regardless of what happened. This willingness is the beginning of healing. Without forgiveness, peace remains a theory. With forgiveness, peace becomes a living reality. Living without resistance also means embracing simplicity. The more complicated your life becomes, the more opportunities there are for resistance to appear. Simplicity is not poverty. It is clarity. It is choosing what truly matters and letting go of what does not. It is releasing the constant craving for more, the endless comparison, the constant pressure to become someone else. Simplicity aligns you with the rhythm of nature. Trees do not resist seasons. Rivers do not resist gravity. The sun does not resist setting. Simplicity teaches you to live in the same way, without tension, without excess, without pretending to be more than you are. When you live simply, resistance has nowhere to hide. There will be moments when resistance tries to return, when old fears reappear, when the mind insists on control. This is natural. The habit of resistance has been practiced for years, even lifetimes. Do not resist the return of resistance. Observe it, smile at it, recognize it as a visitor, not a master. Awareness itself is the antidote. The more you remain aware, the less power resistance has. Over time, resistance becomes weaker, appearing only as a faint shadow that dissolves in the light of presence. You begin to laugh at how much energy was once spent fighting what never needed to be fought. You see that the river of life was always carrying you where you needed to go. Non-resistance transforms relationships. When you stop demanding that others fulfill your expectations, you free them and yourself. You stop arguing to be right. You stop needing to control every conversation. You begin to listen. You begin to understand. Compassion grows naturally when resistance ends. You start seeing people not as obstacles or threats, but as fellow travelers on the path. Everyone is learning, everyone is struggling, everyone is seeking peace in their own way. When you live without resistance, your presence becomes healing to others. People feel safe around you because you no longer project conflict. Your calmness becomes contagious. Your stillness becomes a silent teaching. Non-resistance also changes your relationship with yourself. You stop being at war with your own mind. You stop judging your emotions. You stop criticizing your imperfections. You begin to treat yourself with kindness. You begin to trust your process. This inner acceptance is the foundation of outer peace. How can you stop resisting life if you continue resisting yourself? When you make peace with who you are, when you accept your humanity, you no longer divide your inner world into good and bad, worthy and unworthy. You realize that all aspects of you are part of the whole. You stop trying to fix yourself and start listening to yourself. This listening is the beginning of true self-understanding. Living without resistance reveals a quiet joy that does not depend on circumstances. This joy is not excitement or pleasure. It is serenity, a deep sense of contentment that arises from harmony with the moment. It is the joy of being, the joy of existence itself. You could call it the song of the soul, the natural state of awareness when freed from struggle. This joy cannot be possessed or lost because it is not something external. It is the natural fragrance of peace. When resistance ends, this joy begins to flow spontaneously, like a spring emerging from the earth. It is subtle yet powerful, gentle yet unshakable. Eventually, non-resistance becomes not just a practice, but your nature. It's no longer something you do, it is who you are. You meet life as it comes, without complaint. You adapt effortlessly to change. You see through the illusions of control. You live in the flow. You trust the unfolding. You love what is. This is not indifference, but deep alignment. You become like a tree rooted in the earth, yet flexible in the wind. The storms of life may come, but you no longer break. You bend, you move, you dance. You have discovered the secret the Buddha discovered under the Bodhi tree, that liberation is not escape from life, but freedom within it. To live without resistance is to walk in peace even when the world is restless. It is to smile without reason. It is to love without condition. It is to act without fear. It is to know beyond thought that everything is exactly as it should be. This knowing is not intellectual, it is experiential. It comes from direct communion with the heart of life. You begin to sense that life is not happening to you, it is happening through you, as you. The separation between you and the world dissolves. There is only presence, only awareness, only this infinite now. Peace begins when resistance ends. This is not a poetic idea. It is a lived reality. You can test it in every moment. The next time something disturbs you, stop and observe. Notice the resistance in your body, the tightening in your chest, the tension in your breath. Then soften, breathe, say quietly to yourself, "Let it be." Watch what happens. In that simple act of allowing, you open a doorway. The situation may not change immediately, but your inner state does. You begin to feel spacious. You begin to feel free. You realize that peace was never far away. It was only hidden beneath the insistence that things should be different. Every moment of letting go is a return home. In the end, the path of non-resistance is not about becoming perfect, but about becoming real. It is about shedding illusions one by one until only truth remains. It is about rediscovering the simplicity of being alive, the miracle of awareness, the beauty of the present moment. The masters and sages of every age have pointed toward the same truth. Stop fighting, and you will find peace. The war has always been within. The battlefield has always been the mind. The victory has always been surrender. When you no longer resist, life becomes your ally. The same events that once caused suffering now serve as teachers. The same emotions that once overwhelmed you now pass through like clouds. The same people who once triggered you now become mirrors reflecting your own state of consciousness. Non-resistance turns the entire world into a field of learning, a constant invitation to awaken. Each moment whispers, "Let go, trust, be." And when you listen, when you finally obey the quiet voice of wisdom, you discover that peace was never something to be found. It was what you are. Peace does not mean that pain disappears. It means that pain no longer defines you. Peace does not mean that the mind never moves. It means that you are no longer moved by it. Peace does not mean that life becomes easy. It means that you become unshakable. You stand in the midst of chaos and remain clear because you know the truth. Everything is transient, everything is changing, everything is perfect in its imperfection. This realization dissolves fear because you see that even loss is part of love, even death is part of life. Resistance ends when you stop asking the universe to be other than it is. This is the final lesson of non-resistance. Trust existence. Trust the intelligence that breathes your lungs and beats your heart. Trust the rhythm that moves the planets and births the seasons. Trust the same intelligence that has carried you through every challenge until now. You are not separate from it. You are it. The mind resists because it forgets this truth. But the moment you remember, the fight is over. Peace is restored, not because the world has changed, but because you have remembered who you are. You are the stillness behind all movement, the awareness behind all thought, the silence behind all sound. Let this truth live within you. Let it guide you. Let it soften you. Let it remind you that you do not need to fight to be free. You only need to stop resisting what already is. In that stopping, life unfolds effortlessly. The heart opens, the mind quiets, the soul rests. And in that rest, you discover what all the sages have always known, that peace was never the goal, it was the beginning. If this teaching resonated with your heart and helped you remember the stillness within, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you can continue walking this path of peace, mindfulness, and Buddhist wisdom.